Fellas, in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some contenders and some pretenders in the NBA to this point. We're, I think, a third of the way, over a quarter of the way? I don't know. It's so hard to keep track of how many games in we are because some teams have played 10 less games than other teams. It's very difficult to kind of, understand the whole situation there. But we're a good way through the season. I think we have a good idea of what a lot of these teams are about, what they're good at, what they aren't. And so we're going to be taking a look at how many teams, I think 10 teams, 9 teams here that I'm going to evaluate as potentially contenders for the title this year or teams that are just pretenders. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. But really quickly, before we get started, if you're new here, what's up? My name is Tucker. I upload NBA stuff on this channel twice a day, every single day. So if that's something you're interested in, then be sure to sub to the channel. You can also leave a like rating on the videos as well if you're enjoying them, and check me out at various socials at the bottom of the screen and a link tree down in the description below. With all those things said, let's go ahead and begin our list with the team that has the best record in the NBA as of the recording of this video, the Utah Jazz. And you would think, well, they have the best record in the league, Tucker. How could they be anything other than a contender? And you'd be right. At the moment, I don't think that you can evaluate Utah in any other way than as a contender. They've been playing incredibly well. They've lost like one of their last 19 games. They've been playing out of their minds. And it's a situation where they're doing everything they can to prove in the regular season that they are legit, they are for real. The Mike Conley trade, the fruits of that are coming about a year later than I think a lot of Jazz fans would have hoped that it would, but he is now much better. He is now much healthier. Donovan Mitchell has been really good. Rudy Gobert has been incredible. And again, as we have continued to talk about with them in the past, they've got a really good five-man group and a couple of other guys that work well alongside that group. And the more and more continuity you have this season, I think it benefits you. And I think of all the teams in the West coming into the season, they had arguably as much continuity as any team in the entire league. And in such a weird offseason and limited practice time, I think that's really benefiting them. Now, could they get knocked out in the second round of the postseason? Absolutely. But I don't think that, based off how they played this season, you can call them anything other than a contender so far this year. Next up now, let's go to the Eastern Conference. We're going to kind of go back and forth between the East and the West here. Let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. And again, I think just based off the regular season, you have to go contender here. They have the best record in the East, one of the best defenses in the league, and I think that is what makes me feel, most confident in them as a real contender is the defense that they've shown to this point in the season, but also Joel Embiid is a legit MVP caliber guy. I mean, if Joel Embiid is playing like this and he's healthy and he's good to go in the postseason, that is such a difficult matchup for a lot of different teams, not only in the East, but across the league, because generally, big man defense is not something that is, all that emphasized, at least in an on-ball perspective. You have guys that, can protect the rim well, but man-to-man, big man defense is not necessarily something that is emphasized. And when you look at some of the other potential roadblocks to Philadelphia in the postseason, teams like Brooklyn, for example, or teams in the Western Conference like the Clippers, for example, those could be issues for them. Now, there are certainly teams like the Lakers and the Jazz that have a potential answer for Joel Embiid, but when you combine Embiid with Doc Rivers, with the defense, with the added shooting, with the Ben Simmons stuff, who looks really, really good defensively right now, all those things point towards, Philadelphia being a real threat in the postseason. I absolutely think that they are a contender. Next up now, the Phoenix Suns. Maybe a surprise entry on this list for some. I like the Suns a lot. For the moment, just because they're the Suns, I'm going to go pretender for now, but I don't say that necessarily a negative way. I'm saying it more so like I'm in wait and see mode on Phoenix. They're on the list. They're on my mind because they've got a nice group together. Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, a lot of the other wings and kind of combo forwards they have that really round out this lineup in a significant way. I like everything Phoenix has going for them right now. I think it's just a little bit too early given the fact that up until the bubble, this was one of the worst franchises in the league. Then they go on an undefeated run in the bubble. They add Chris Paul. It just feels like a very quick turnaround to suddenly buy into them as contenders. They're very, very good. I've made videos about them throughout the season talking about why they are very, very good. I'm just not quite ready to go full contender yet with Phoenix, but by the end of the year, they might be there. They've definitely been playing really, really well this season. Next up now, the Milwaukee Bucks. This might feel like a no-brainer, but I don't think that it is. Let's talk this one out a little bit. So, on paper, Milwaukee's really, really good. Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, Giannis, of course, Brook Lopez, Dante DiVincenzo. Like, they've got... If you're only playing your starters and you just need to put 5 guys on the floor, Milwaukee arguably has the best lineup that you can put on the floor. But there are some question marks, specifically as it gets to the postseason and it gets to late game situations. How good is Giannis going to be in the postseason when everything is keyed in on him? How willing is he going to be to defer and be more of like a combo 4-5 type guy rather than a perimeter-oriented player? Who is going to ultimately, make big shots for them down the stretch of games? Is it going to be Drew Holiday? Is it going to be Chris Middleton? Is it going to be Giannis? Those are all absolutely question marks, but I still think that they're a contender. I think that, just the way that they play in terms of all the three-point shot making, yes, there's a lot of variance in that. If you have an off night, it's pretty tough to win, but they just put themselves at such an advantage night after night in terms of the system that they play and how good Giannis, Middleton, and Drew Holiday are, that until proven otherwise, I'm going to go contender there with Milwaukee. Next up now, the LA Lakers. I won't spend too much time here. They are the defending champs. They are the absolute contender, and there's really no reason to make an argument otherwise. Assuming they are fully healthy, they're the best team in the league right now, in my opinion, until someone else shows otherwise. And that's just, they're coasting, and they have one of the best records in a very tough Western Conference right now. So no need to have a real conversation about the Lakers. Next up now, the Brooklyn Nets. I don't think you can call them a contender right now. They, from a talent perspective, are of course a contender. I mean, you've got 3 Hall of Fame level guys in their prime, all rock and roll at the same time right now. But there's obviously going to be a bit of a growing period here as they try and figure out their roster with so many changes mid-season. Of course, defensively and at the 5 spot, like, there are going to be problems here by the end of the year, depending on who they get in buyouts or if they can find a way to make another trade. Maybe they'll be there, but this version of the Nets right now, as they're currently playing, not even necessarily as they're currently constructed, but as they're currently playing, I'm going to go pretender, but it's only because of how they look right now. It's not necessarily about the upside. It's not necessarily about the outlook of this roster. It's specifically when you watch the Brooklyn Nets, they don't look like a contender right now, but 2 weeks from now that could change, and they could still be really bad, defensively, and still be a pretender. But for right now, I feel comfortable staying there, but obviously with the caveat that they could jump up in a real significant way by the end of the year just because of the talent on the roster, specifically offensively. Next up now, Denver. I don't see any reason why I should believe in this Nuggets team right now, other than Nikola Jokic being absolutely incredible. I don't see an argument. And so I'm going to go pretender right now. I don't think they're better than Utah. I don't think that they're better than the Lakers. I don't think that they're better than the Clippers. I don't think they're better than the Bucks or the Sixers. They're good. They're fine, but they don't scare me, I guess, is the point that I'm getting to. And I understand they were good in the postseason last year. They were also 1 game away from being knocked out of the first round in 5 games. So I don't really know that this is a team that I'm going to be jumping for joy, every time they win a basketball game. I'm still in wait and see mode. I still don't know if they can defend. I still don't know if they have good enough wings. And all I know is that Nikola Jokic is really good. Jamal Murray is really good. And that's about it. So, until proven otherwise, until there's a move made, until there's significant improvements throughout the regular season, until there's more consistency with this group, they're a pretender. And I think that's kind of been where they've lived for a while. And we kind of came off that a little bit because they did make the conference finals last year, and that, of course, is a big accomplishment. But based off this season's version, I'm going pretender for Denver. We've got 2 left now. The Boston Celtics I included here, despite the fact that as of the recording of this video, they have a 500 record because they're a team that is continually in the conversation. But I don't think there's any argument for them being contender right now. Obviously, Brown and Tatum have been awesome, and that's about the end of the argument. You don't know if they have what it takes defensively. You don't know if they have the 5 spot figured out. You don't know what Kemba Walker is going to give you. And it's just kind of a mess right now for Boston. And ultimately, will they figure it out? Maybe, probably. They've got the talent too on the wings. And I think Brad Stevens is one of the better coaches in the league. But I don't really think that it makes sense for me to look at this right now and say, hey, this is a really good basketball team, because I don't think that's the case. I think they're still trying to figure some things out. And ultimately, maybe they will. But if you're asking me right now on February 15th, are the Boston Celtics contenders or pretenders? They're pretenders, and it's honestly not all that close, but I did feel the need to include them on this list. And then last up, the LA Clippers are absolutely, positively contenders. Now, this is a team that I got in trouble with last year, being a little bit too excited about the talent on the roster and believing in Kawhi a little bit too much. But I don't think that you can make an argument for them being pretenders other than the name on the front of the jersey and them being the Clippers and some kind of curse and the possibility that maybe we'll have fans in the postseason and they will be playing road games in the conference finals if they do end up playing the Lakers in every single game. There are arguments to be made in terms of potential roadblocks in the postseason. But as of this moment, when you watch the Clippers, they are certainly good enough to contend for the NBA title this year. They are one of the best teams in the Western Conference. You could argue they're the second best team in the West, even as well as Utah has been playing, strictly because of the talent perspective and the upside, the high level talent on this roster between Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, both of which on any given week can go on an MVP caliber stretch. And so all those things considered, in addition to the improvements that they have made on this roster in comparison to last year's group, I think they're absolutely contenders this season. So in review, we have the Utah Jazz as contenders, the Sixers as contenders, the Suns as kind of wait and see, but pretenders. We have the Bucks as contenders. We have the Lakers as contenders, the Nets pretenders, Nuggets pretenders, Celtics pretenders, and Clippers as contenders. So I think we went about 50-50 there. There's only really a handful of teams that I think are legitimate contenders at the moment, but of course that can always change, whether it be with roster moves or just with how teams play throughout the season, and we'll continue to keep an eye on those throughout the year. But yeah, that is going to be the end of the second of today's videos. I thank you all very much for watching. If you missed the first video of the day, I was talking about the Boston Celtics and GM Danny Ainge as a whole. So if you missed that one, that sounds interesting to you, be sure to check out the boxes on screen and those videos all across the channel as I upload twice a day, every single day. But with all those things said, as I said in the beginning, my name is Tucker. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.